What a game. This is the first Leaf game in maybe a few years where my pulse, my heartbeat, my emotions were all boil inside of me and I just wanted to jump through the screen and rip somebody's face off. This is the way hockey used to be all the time back in the day. And that's what made it so goddamn exciting. Much was made of the Leafs being a dirty team last game when Galchenyuk took Lowry out of the game and Thornton dumped Perreault later on in the game, which is all a bunch of horseshit. Galchenyuk's hit didn't result in a penalty. They're saying it was a headshot. He didn't hit him in the head. He hit him in the shoulder, and then the jarring afterwards is what got him in the head. It wasn't late or a blind side or anything. He hit him from the side. It was all good. He didn't get a fucking penalty, and they're griping about it, you know. The Thornton thing was late, but who cares? I've seen things like that happen all my life, and a lot of the time they'll get penalized for it. Sometimes they won't. It's just a late hit. It's borderline right. They let it go. Somehow he ends up getting fined for it, $3,000, which doesn't matter. But it's like, why the hell? When this happens all the time, and guys maybe get a penalty for it, why is Thornton getting friggin' fined for it? But either way, now there's all this talk about the Leafs being a dirty team. This is a team that barely hits at all, and the whole name of their game is scoring goals. Like, this is not a dirty team. But they obviously got their backs up against Winnipeg the other night for some reason, and it carried over into tonight's game, and it was awesome to watch because the Jets focused way too much on trying to get some sort of vengeance on Galchenyuk for fucking laying a clean hit on a guy and taking him out of the lineup. All they were doing in the first period was chasing him around. Anytime they got a chance to give him a shot, you know, that's why you lost a hockey game. You're all worked up about this fucking hit that wasn't even an issue, and they don't even come out and play hockey. So the first period was the closest of all three periods, and the Jets actually got out to an early lead. 39 seconds in, I think it was, Ehlers scored on a pass from the wing right in front of the crease, and he just kind of chipped it up over Campbell's glove, and there's nothing much he could have done there. So they got on the board really early, but then the Leafs came back, and right around the 4-minute mark, it was who got the first one? It was Thornton, and it was Thornton was on a line with Spezza and Adam Brooks, so it was like the two old guys with the young guy. And Brooks had a really strong game. He was one of the best Leafs on this night, and eventually they were kind of forechecking and working it around the zone and getting some chances. And eventually it came back to Brooks, who was covering at the left point for whoever was out there, and he just kind of put one of those wide shots in, and it caromed in behind the net, and Thornton with his long stick and his long reach just went around the other side of the net, wrapped it in, and we had a 1-1 game. And then later on, 11 minutes in, maybe something like that, this one was one of those fluke goals that normally don't happen for Toronto. They usually happen against Toronto. But Muzzin was leading a rush along the right side, got to center, dumped it in. Hellebuck went out to play it. It hit something weird, a stanchion or something, bounced out in front of the net, and Marner was hard charging there anyways, and he just had to tap it in under the bar. So 2-1 Leafs, and that's the way the first period ended. The second period, they would extend the lead to 3-1, and this was actually a really impressive shift by Nylander because he had given the puck away or something like that, but he made a really good defensive play in his own zone, almost acting as a defenseman, and to get the puck back from somebody, and then he kind of curled around and did some dipsy doodles to get away from some pressure before getting it up to Sandin, who then led the Leaf rush up ice, and Nylander got on his horse on the right wing. Sandin shifted it over to him. Tavares was going to the net on the other side. Nylander passed it over. Tavares inside the post high. 3-1 Leafs. That's the way it would go until the very end of the game. Now, I don't like the Winnipeg Jets. I've never liked the Winnipeg Jets, except when they were the old Winnipeg Jets back in the 80s with Dale Hawerchuk and all those guys. I loved the Jets back then. But since this new incarnation has come, I haven't liked their team one bit. They're imaged as this big, strong team who like to play physical hockey, yet when Galchenyuk lays this hit on a guy, they fucking whine like a bunch of bitches, right? Like, and then tonight, they had more hits than the Leafs, but the Leafs were the ones taking the physical toll on them. A really impressive play by Sandin. The puck went down into the right corner in the Leaf end, and Wheeler was pursuing it, and Sandin went to retrieve it. Just kind of got the puck, stopped up, and let Wheeler run into him, and Wheeler was down. And I was thinking it was another concussion, and I honestly didn't give a fuck because I hate that whole team, and they get what they reap what they sow, right? He eventually was back in the game, but it was like, and here they are whining again about it, you know, on a clean hit too. Like, it's fucking unbelievable. And then later on in the game, Muzzin laid a hit on Ehlers in the corner, and he went off with it looked like a shoulder. He eventually came back too. But, you know, you had the Jets, who are this big bad team, complaining about the Leafs last game when they really did nothing wrong. And then they come back and they go after Galchenyuk all night. And yet the Leafs are the ones who are like, okay, come at us. And then, you know, they take them out, right? Like, it's just, I hate teams like that. Whiny, things aren't going our way kind of thing, you know, like you preach we play this big physical game, but then when somebody pushes back, oh, they can't do that, right? Like, it's this sense of entitlement or something like that, and it drives me crazy, and that's a big reason why I hate that fucking team. And it's so glad to see the Leafs win this game tonight. And at the end of the game, it was awesome. It was Joe Thornton, who's such a nice guy, right? A guy who's always laughing and joking around. He's a big boy, though, and he's got old man power now, right, too, which is even more scary. He was going at Ehlers. The two of them were going at each other all night long, and at the end of the third period, he took 2 minor penalties in a row just going after him. He cross-checked him and broke his stick off of him, went back to the bench, got another one, and then went right back at him, and I was like, yes, Joe, just drop it and beat the fuck out of him, right? It was awesome. And then Simmons and Dubois were jawing at each other on the bench, and then they got game misconducts at the end, which would suck because I wanted to see them hit the ice and maybe fight. But this was the first Leafs game that I was really, really invested in a, okay, get the blood boiling, I'm really into this kind of game, right? Most Leafs games I watch, and I'm happy if they win or whatever, but it used to be a lot more substantial, your investment in a team, because it's a lot more interesting when there is a price to be paid out there, right? For example, the last Leaf team that really was like that, I guess Brian Burke built the team that was supposed to be so truculent, you know, with Colton Orr and those guys and Mark Fraser, and you got that with that team. But back in the early 2000s with the Bay Street Bullies, when, you know, Gary Roberts, Shane Corson, Darcy Tucker, and McCabe, Domi, like, they had a really tough team. Yushkevich, like, guys that could hit, guys that could fight, that could also play hockey, and it was just, they basically went to war. And they had a series with the Islanders in the playoffs one of those years that was just like, it was the most brutal series I ever watched. I know back in probably when they swung sticks at each other in the 60s and whatever, or whenever that was, that's probably pretty brutal too. But in my era, this was one of the most violent, toll-taking series I'd ever seen. And watching guys go through that and battle for each other like that, it makes the fans' engagement in the game and in the team and in the whole sport in general that much more intense and that much more substantial, right? So you know, the NHL has gotten away from the hitting and the fighting, and now there's a penalty for fucking everything. So it's like, oh, this team had 12 power plays tonight and they won 10-1. Well, of course they fucking did, right? Like, they've just totally transformed the league. So tonight was kind of more of a throwback to when hockey was its best, when you know, they played the game, but they also didn't put up with any shit, right? And tonight was more along those lines, and I gotta tell you, it was the most invested I've been in a Leafs game in a couple years. So that was awesome to watch tonight. And they got one more game with the Jets, not right now, it's later on, but we'll see if anything carries over time with that. And hopefully it does, but yeah, awesome game to watch. And the Leafs did ice it late with a empty net goal. The teams were down to 4-on-4 because Thornton and Ehlers had both gone off during one of those fracases. And Mikheyev caused a turnover, and then just, you know how fast he is, he just turned on the Jets, torched down the left wing. The guy hooked him. There was a penalty coming anyway. He was eventually able to get it out front to Kerfoot, who buried it for the empty net goal and the 4-1 win. Impressive performances tonight this was another whole team engagement. Although, you know, Marner and Tavares got 2 of the goals, so you had a couple of the big boys scoring. They also got some scoring from the lower lines, with Thornton getting the opening goal, Kerfoot getting the empty netter. I really thought Brooks, for only having played a handful of games for the Leafs now and being the rookie, he had his best game by far as a Leaf so far, playing with the 2 old guys. Thornton, I loved his engagement, going after Ehlers and scoring the goal, and he was his most effective tonight. Spezza had some chances, but he just didn't seem to have it tonight. He had a couple of really good chances and just kind of lost the puck, right? So I don't think he was quite feeling it tonight, but he was involved and in there. And then, of course, the top 2 lines. I thought Galchenyuk, you know, he didn't shy away. He probably knew it was coming, even though it shouldn't have, because it was a clean hit. But he didn't shy away from the contact. He got some chances. He was in there with his usual amount of energy, along with Tavares and Nylander on his line. The top line, of course, with Foligno on there, they didn't have as good a game as I think the previous game, but of course they got their chances. They contributed as well. So in the third line, as well, with Simmons and Big Mick and Kerfoot also caused a lot of chaos as well. So Sandin was in for Bogosian, because now apparently Bogosian isn't going to be out for a week. He's going to be out for closer to 4 weeks. So Sandin has come in, and tonight especially, his game was amazing. Riley wasn't having the best game, so they even pulled him from the top power play unit near the end of the game and put Sandin on there, just because you know, he showed so much poise with the puck and patience and smart decisions, laid that nice big hit on Wheeler. He had a really, really strong game. So that's nice to see that he's been developing pretty well when he hasn't been playing for the Leafs. So, and then Campbell in net, he had a big bounce back game last time when they beat Winnipeg, and tonight he was even better. That first shot of the game went in, but after that he closed the door on them, and although the Leafs had a big advantage shot-wise and everything, and they were the better team as the game wore on, he still had to make a handful of really good saves, and he was really consistent and really steady, and more like what we saw during his win streak rather than kind of when he got a little bit shaky there for a few games. So they managed to get through the game with no injuries, which on a night like that, when everybody's going at each other, you never know, right? So came out with the 2 points, came out healthy. That's all you can ask, right? So next they have Montreal, and that'll be good to see, you know, because they play really good against the top teams like Winnipeg right behind them, and then Edmonton right behind Winnipeg. They play really well against those teams, but the teams they usually lose against are the shitty teams. Like, they lost 2 to Vancouver, even though they should have won them both. They just had some shaky goaltending. Ottawa, they always have troubles with Ottawa, and in Montreal as well can give them trouble. So hopefully they can just go out and put another big effort in like they did tonight, and hand Montreal a big loss. So we will see what happens, but whatever the case, I'm so happy with the way tonight's game went and how it was a little more of a retro performance by the Leafs. I fully don't expect stuff like this to continue, other than maybe against Winnipeg as this thing goes on, but it was fun while it lasted tonight. So fingers crossed, but I'm not that hopeful. So until next time, have a great night.